So I wanted to talk a little bit today about the concept of soul decks and my thoughts and quite strong, in some respects, opinions about the concept of a soul deck. For those of you who don't know, and I didn't know, I have to admit this was a term that I'd never heard before I became more involved in the online tarot community. It certainly wasn't something that I'd heard outside of online spaces. So if you don't know, the idea of a soul deck, or the concept of a soul deck, is that there is, like soulmates, there is this one perfect deck that exists in the world for everybody. And all you have to do is find that one perfect deck, and it will give you everything that you need from the tarot. It will be an instant connection. You will understand it perfectly. It will understand you perfectly. You'll never need another deck again. It will be the one that you're always drawn to work with. And it will just be this amazing, almost symbiotic, instant relationship with this deck. Now, I don't personally believe in the concept of a soul deck any more than I believe in the concept of a soulmate, which is a conversation for a whole nother video, maybe one day when I'm ready to tackle that in the future. But for me, I think when you have this idea of this soul deck, this one perfect deck that you just need to find, it completely ignores the fact that people are multifaceted, they are complicated, they are constantly growing and evolving and changing and just going through these cycles of being alive and learning about life. I mean, when I think about this idea of this soul deck and this one perfect deck, and I think about myself, I have been through a major personal shift in my understanding of myself, and something very deeply rooted in myself that I was in denial about or wasn't aware of or whatever. In the last 6 months, this thing has come to light, and whilst it hasn't made me a completely different person, it would be disingenuous to say that it hasn't had an impact on my sense of self, my sense of beliefs, my ideas, my views of the world, how I interact with people. It has had an impact, and it's changed who I am. So the deck that I maybe would connect with the best today is absolutely not the deck that I would have picked 6 months ago. The person that I am now at 37 is absolutely nothing like the person I was at 27, at 20, at 17, at 7. We have this idea of, and I think it's something that kind of popped into my head as well, that I know Katie Flowers talked about when she did her video about authenticity, which isn't related to this topic, but I'll link in the description box anyway, because it is an interesting point, that we have this idea that we have this core self, there's this core idea of self, and that is constant and that never changes. But I think that our core sense of self, just like our sense of self in general, and just like our personalities and our ideas and our beliefs and all those kind of things, is constantly in flux. So the idea that there's this one deck out there that's just perfect and just right for you is, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't sit with me. And I think even like when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking that one of the things that came up was like, maybe, you know, the only way to get the perfect deck for you is to create your own deck. But even then, that deck is only going to be the perfect deck for you in that moment, in the moment that it was created, in the space that it was created in, for the person that you were when you created it, because that might not be the person that you are in 6 months time, 10 months time, 5 years time, whatever, however long it takes for you to go through all these different changes. Human beings are complicated. We're multifaceted. We're constantly evolving and growing as individuals, as society evolves and grows, but also as we learn about ourselves internally. It just, and this is why this idea of soul anything doesn't really work for me. Something else I wanted to touch on, and this can get a little bit controversial within the tarot community, and I'm aware of that, is that I do think that this idea of soul deck can very much tie into and influence this cycle of deck buying. Now, I don't have any problem with people who buy lots of decks, who choose to spend their money on decks. What you do with your money is your own business. I have 34 tarot decks of my own, and it could be argued that that is 33 more than any one person is ever going to need in their life. Because if you've got one tarot deck, you've got a tarot deck. Why do you need any more, right? And I do have a video talking about why I have more than one deck and why I like to buy a lot of decks. But I think because we're almost so desperate to protect our right to buy decks when we choose to buy decks, we shut down to any discussion or argument or ideas that actually sometimes there are negative behaviours that are influencing our need to buy lots of decks. And where I think this idea of this soul deck maybe plays into that a little bit is that we have this idea that when we buy a deck, it's gonna be the one, and it's gonna be instant, and we're gonna fall in love with it, and it's gonna be this perfect relationship that's just gonna work out straight away. And so we buy a deck, we get it out, we play around with a bit. There isn't this instant connection. It isn't this like wow moment that we were expecting it to be. And so we put it on the shelf and we buy another one, and we get it out and we look at it and we get all excited about it thinking this is going to be the one. And then there isn't this instant connection that we thought it was going to be. And I think this is really, not only is this really disheartening, but I think we're doing ourselves a disservice in the long run, because we have all of these wonderful decks that we could take the time to really go deep with and really spend time with and really build a relationship with. And if we latch on to this concept of this one perfect deck, I think we lose that opportunity to find the many perfect decks. We'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas about soul decks. And, you know, I know that there are going to be people who disagree with everything that I said, and that's absolutely fine. Feel free to talk to me about it in the comments below. Otherwise, take care everyone, and lots of love.